just great. I thought the designer said this was just a straight port. What a hack.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're taking a look at the top 10 video game remakes that got it wrong.
A temporary setback, I'm sure, sire.
For this list, we're not necessarily looking at the worst video game remakes, as we've made several lists of those, but remakes that got its source material wrong and or messed with the design of the game too much. Just to bring a little more positivity to the list, was there a remake you felt made the original better? What's a game you'd like to see get remade? Share with us in the comments below. Now, let's put on our critical thinking caps.
Oh, bloody hell, you would have to be a sodding squirrel, wouldn't you?
Why, is there a problem with that?
Number 10, Resident Evil 3. We'd like to start off by saying the 2020 remake of Resident Evil 3 is not a terrible game by any stretch of the imagination. Its story is excellent, and seeing our lovely Jill with an arguably better redesign was a dream come true. Unfortunately, when this game flubbed, it flubbed kinda hard. For starters, an entire segment from the original game was cut completely from the remake without any explanation. Then there's Nemesis, who is demoted to a completely scripted enemy, unlike the terrifying and free-roaming Mr. X from the original RE2. With RE2's remake being as good as it was, why couldn't Capcom give RE3 the same treatment?
Here you go. We can use this to stay in contact.
I know what a radio is.
Number 9, Secret of Mana.
And what's a sword doing here? Too right!
While the Mana remakes have gotten a little bit better lately with Trials of Mana, Secret of Mana was a rocky start. How so, one might ask? Well, the music played a major part in making the original such a memorable experience, so one has to wonder why the developers went through all the trouble to completely remake the soundtrack in a totally different way. With the drastic shift in tones and rhythms, certain beats didn't hit the same way as they did back in 1993. Thank goodness they were able to get mostly everything right about Trials of Mana. Mostly. Number 8, MediEvil Resurrection.
Well, he's back.
Poor Sir Daniel, left behind by the PlayStation family and without a new game since this awful PSP remake of the 1998 original. Of course, not including the 2019 remake of the original. Resurrection was supposed to reintroduce the world of Gallowmere to players and integrate a storyline cut from the original game. The problem? That cut story kinda sucked. Not only did it fail to retain the identity of the series, it also focused more on gimmicks, minigames, and such god-awful jokes. Basically, nothing in Resurrection replicated the fun and wondrous atmosphere of the first game. Where was the basic combat and goofy charm? We suppose those were the only things that even Zarok couldn't resurrect.
A temporary setback, I'm sure, sire.
Number 7, Luigi's Mansion.
Leaving poor Luigi in bad company.
Even to this day, Luigi's Mansion is an absolute blast to play on GameCube. With excellent controls and equally excellent gameplay on GameCube, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who didn't enjoy this classic on GameCube. So how did Nintendo mess up a remake of it? Simply put, it was because they threw it onto the Nintendo 3DS and tried to enforce the use of one of its features. As a result, the game wound up having abysmal controls, and it didn't help that the game desperately wanted you to use the gyro controls too. One thing was obvious, this mansion was not meant to be pocket-sized. Scratch that, there were two problems. The pocket-sized mansion, and not putting it on Switch. Why was this not on Switch? This should have been on Switch.
Or else Mario will be trapped forever.
Number 6, Space Raiders. Look, Space Invaders may look laughably ancient compared to even modern pixel games, but hey, the game is still fun to this day. And there was absolutely no need to remake it. Not in 2021, not in 2010, and certainly not in 2004. Space Raiders messed up Space Invaders in the worst ways possible. Bland graphics, boring gameplay, and an unnecessary edgy spin made Space Raiders a painful experience from start to finish. And get this, one of the first scenes in the game is of the female protagonist showering. We're fine with games getting provocative from time to time, but throwing this in felt like a desperate move to revitalize the IP while catering to action game audiences. Number 5, Shadowrun. Yeah, you all remember Shadowrun, right? That one first-person shooter set in space with all the online multiplayer deathmatch modes? Wait, that's not Shadowrun? Yeah, one would be wrong for thinking that this was actually a Shadowrun game. It is, technically, but not anywhere close to the source material. No, this online multiplayer sci-fi shooter was supposed to be based on the tabletop science fantasy RPG of the same name. The same one that is more focused on the story, like RPGs are supposed to be, with themes of crime, mystery, horror, and the like. So what prompted them to completely change the IP into an online multiplayer FPS? We're not entirely sure, and fans were incredibly quick to reject it and make their disdain well known. It probably didn't help knowing the game was prototyped using Halo Combat Evolved's engine. You see the problem here?
Artifact in force, Dragon Bridge. Artifact in force.
Number 4, Conker Live and Reloaded.
Just great. I thought the designer said this was just a straight port. What a hack.
Conker's bad fur day was that one mature-rated game every kid hoped would trick their parents into buying it for them. It was obscenely funny, ultra-violent, and you know, something that we weren't supposed to have. Plus, the story and characters made it one of the best games of its era. Put all this stuff into an HD remake, and you sadly get the less than stellar Conker Live and Reloaded. This iteration would censor pretty much every foul word uttered, no matter how harmless or harmful, and the multiplayer was completely thrown away in favor of a team-based shooter mode for Xbox Live. Needless to say, these seemingly minor changes were enough for players to notice the charm and beauty of the original, and almost forget this.
Yeah, cash, prizes.
Number 3, 13. If you haven't picked up this underrated shooter, you need to log into your Steam account right now and nab it. 13 was a game we had desperately been wanting a remake for years. Heck, we even would have settled for a port on modern platforms. How can you not want more with beautiful cel-shaded visuals and comic book aesthetics? And yet, this would turn into another case of be careful what you wish for, as the 2020 remake was an utter disaster. Not only did it launch in a poorly optimized state, but the visuals were all wrong. Yes, they were still cel-shaded to some extent, but only enough to have the appearance of Fortnite. In the end, 13 wound up looking like any other first-person shooter, and you just can't have that when part of your visual appeal is your main attraction. Number 2, Ape Escape on the Loose. With the way that Ape Escape is designed, it is absolutely essential to have 2 analog sticks. That's it. 2. No less, no more. This is how it has been since the very first game, and it is because of Ape Escape that Sony went and had to create the DualShock controller, one of the best and most historic controllers in games history, and a historic moment for the PlayStation brand. With that in mind, how in the monkey-loving hell do you forget this necessity and throw Ape Escape on PSP? You know, the handheld system that had 1 analog stick and nothing more. Because of that, you make the game incredibly frustrating to play. Again, You need to have that second analog stick. It is necessary. Players need that camera control, and without it, Ape Escape on the Loose was impossible to play. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to WatchMojo and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos, or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Super Mario 64 DS. We don't froth at the mouth over Super Mario 64 for its worlds or level design or fun gameplay. It's not the sole reason why we love and cherish this game so much. No, what makes Super Mario 64 so great is primarily because of the sweet, satisfying, and fluid controls. To this day, Mario handles like a sexy sports car, and it's why we still go back to it all these years later. Nintendo would try to bring this to the DS with new characters and features, but Super Mario 64 DS ultimately ruins what the original achieved. Gameplay is much slower with the DS's D-pad, and running is now tied to a button. What made the OG fantastic was that fluid movement, that platforming, that agility and mobility. Here, the slowdown makes this legendary title a slog to sit through, and it almost destroys the experience.
In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.